You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
I never get tired of that music, Ben. Yes, you're listening to Orange County's longest running business talk show, and I am your host, Rick Franzi. And boy, do we have a good show planned for you. Why, you ask? Because Angie Rowe is our guest. She's the president and CEO of Beyond Blindness. Angie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So this is one of our special nonprofit focus shows. And so let's talk about you before we talk about the organization, and tell us about your path to becoming the president and CEO of Beyond Blindness.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today, Rick. And I'm really excited to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. Came to Beyond Blindness kind of in a non-traditional route. I actually have my bachelor's in environmental science and my master's in public policy with a certificate in industrial systems engineering. And I went to corporate America and started out in a very high-tech, very science-based profession. And then had my family and started out on this kind of nonprofit journey through the Junior League of Orange County. And I think, as a stay-at-home mom, I had the opportunity to get really involved with the Junior League and eventually becoming president. And they really trained me through that experience in all aspects of nonprofit management. And from that, I kind of went back to work when the kids went back to school and started my nonprofit career, first at the Orange County Marathon as a program and events coordinator, and then eventually landing as the chief operating officer and then chief financial officer at Global Genes, which is a rare disease patient advocacy organization. My last year there, I spent as interim executive director. And during that time, this position at Beyond Blindness opened up. And kind of true to my roots in nonprofit, at the time we were called Blind Children's Learning Center. And we were actually a project of the Junior League when I was president. So it was kind of a full circle moment. And I thought it'd be really cool to go back into a community program and lead an organization where I found my passion for nonprofit work. And it just kind of through the recruitment process, they offered me the job and I ended up here, and it's been the best job of my entire career.
And how long have you been there?
A little over 5 years.
Okay. Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the organization. And it's an opportunity to set the mission, who you help, what's Beyond Blindness do, how long has it been around, give us the whole story, Angie, please.
Sure. We were founded in 1962 by Dr. Wilhelm Denise and 5 other individuals. Dr. Denise came here after the war. He was Dutch and he immigrated to America, and he was blind at the time that he came here from the war, and he saw this huge need for services for blind people. And with these 5 other blind individuals, he started what was called Services for the Blind Incorporated. And, pretty quickly, he learned that to really make the biggest impact in serving people with blindness, you needed to start in childhood. And the earlier you start, the better. And I think it really speaks volumes to who we are now at Beyond Blindness. We have a mission to empower children with visual impairments and other disabilities to achieve their fullest potential. We do that through our integrated journey of care. This is a comprehensive way of serving a child where we look at all aspects of their development from birth and early childhood all the way through 22. And we're kind of with them and their family on that entire journey. We provide early intervention services. That's our first kind of entry into the family. Anywhere between birth and 5 years old, they can come to us for various one-on-one therapy services. We have classrooms that are inclusive. We have all sorts of programming for children 0 to 5 and their families. Once they transition out and go into the public school system, we provide classroom support For children who have to have their materials adapted, we have teachers of the visually impaired. We have orientation and mobility specialists, which you might know as like a white cane teacher. The technical name is orientation and mobility. So we help them navigate their education. We also then provide different types of social groups and ways for them to interact, because children with blindness and other visual impairments, when you can't see, you can't pick up on social cues, you don't know where to look, facial expressions. There's so many things that we just take for granted, and especially when 80% of early learning is dictated by your vision.
Mm.
It's like we take so much of that for granted. And what we're here to do is provide that support and that growth to let these kids know that they can be anything that they want to be. It doesn't have to be limited by their sight. And so we also support siblings and parents through mental health counseling and other social services and a whole family support program that's all for the whole family. So we do a lot, but it's really about providing that support across a child's entire journey and their family's entire journey with this disability.
So you gave me a lot to think about in that answer, and I have a couple questions to follow up. I hope that's okay.
Of course.
What's the earliest that children can be diagnosed or doctors can realize that the child can't see, the child's blind?
Well, you can realize it at birth, depending on the severity. A lot of our children have what's called cortical visual impairment. We're seeing a lot of uptick in developing countries. You see more of the cortical visual impairment or some type of limited vision,
Okay.
or vision that is obstructed through neurological disorders. In current times, it used to be in the past, we would keep premature babies alive by pumping them full of oxygen, and that would cause the blindness.
Hmm.
In today's world, we have a lot better technology, better science. We can keep younger children alive, but the increase in prevalence of rare and genetic disorders, in neurological deficiencies, those all contribute to vision loss. And I think we didn't know a lot of that. We're seeing more and more kids with autism, cerebral palsy, those kinds of things, having cortical visual impairment, which is a neurological disorder. And there'll be certain things that parents will start to notice as their child ages, developmental milestones that they're not hitting, different tracking that they're not doing, things like that might indicate that there's something going on with their vision. But it is recommended, and a lot of people don't know this, that every child between 6 months and a year, and then at 3 and at 5, have a comprehensive vision exam. And typically it used to be school readiness at kindergarten. You'd go look at the eye chart at the pediatricians, and if you
Right.
couldn't see, they'd send you to the eye doctor. Now, the American Academy of Optometrists recommends that you start having your child's eyes checked much earlier. And so we can determine a lot at a very early age if they get in here to see us. And that's one thing I failed to mention when we talked about Beyond Blindness. One of our services is a free optometry clinic that we offer in partnership with Ketchum University. So any parent can call and schedule an appointment for our optometry clinic to come in and have their child's eyes examined.
So a second question, I'm putting, I can't help but be empathetic about the parents who now have learned that their child is blind or partially sighted. What does Beyond Blindness do for the parents who, it has to be an impactful realization and maybe even traumatic for them?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, if you read, we often publicize a lot of our parent comments, or we have a social worker that does a 30, 60, 90 conversation with the parents. We're very mindful, and part of what my team and I have built here that didn't exist before I came is this whole family support arm.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're very mindful of the fact that there is an extensive amount of documented research on the more supported the family, the parent or the caregiver, the grandparent, the foster parent. We have all our families look very different here. But whoever that is the primary caregiver or caregivers is supported, the greater the outcomes are for the child. Because if the parent is under a lot of stress and a lot of dealing with a lot of other things like financial insecurity, food insecurities, housing insecurities, they're not focused on what their child needs to be doing to develop appropriately or improve their child's development. Because we're only in with these kids maybe an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a week, depending on the need and what, we, are authorized to give those services. The parent has to do a lot of work outside of that. So we spend a lot of time talking to our parents, asking our parents how they're doing, asking if they have any needs. If our providers are in the home and pick up on something, they will refer them to one of our counseling. We have a full counseling department, a mental health counseling department, or our social worker, or someone on our family support team, in order to get that conversation going and making sure that we can help that parent access the resources they need to feel more supported. It is such an integral part of what we do and why I think we've seen so much growth in the last few years. The parents also can come to family events. We host a variety of different sized family events every month, from large events for Halloween and the holidays to much smaller events that they're doing flower decorating or things like that. And it gives those parents that opportunity to come together in a very inclusive, supported, safe environment. And how their kids act and what they do, it's like all the other kids they're with. There's similar behaviors. And so it allows that ability for them to feel supported and doing things with their family in a group of people that are just like them or going through similar life experiences. And so we really try to address that a multitude of ways, and include siblings, because there's a lot of sibling trauma that goes on with kids that are siblings of kids with a disability who maybe don't get the attention that they would if they didn't have a child,
Right.
a sibling with a disability. So all of our programs are designed to include that sibling, include that parent, include the neighbor down the street that might be the kid's best friend. They can bring those people to our events and really build that community here of other parents, friends, supporters, and other siblings that have brothers and sisters with disabilities. So it's a beautiful thing.
It is. You anticipated my final follow-up question, which was this idea of community, because I would think when parents realize that they may not know anybody else whose child is blind, they may not even know, well, a blind person necessarily. And so this is, like really new to them and foreign, and having a community that has walked the same journey and understands it's got to be so reinforcing and important. What good work.
Well, thank you. It's so true. And it's, one of our big programs that we've just really gotten off the ground in the last year or so is what we call, the kids named it, the Social Society. And it's a group of kids that are, preteen, teens that come together each week on Wednesdays after school, and they work with our teachers of the visually impaired, and they go grocery shopping. They went to Chick-fil-A and did a tour to see what it would be like to work at Chick-fil-A. But they're all children who are blind. And the thing is, they all come from different schools. And if it weren't for Beyond Blindness, they might not ever meet each other, because typically there's only one kid or in that whole school that comes to school that is blind. So this gives them that also, when they become teenagers, a group of people that are just like them, that they get to hang out with. And we're teaching them good skills, life skills, as they come and have some fun together.
I enjoy every show we do here on Critical Mass over the 15 years. The nonprofit focus shows have a deeper meaning, though, many times for me, to understand the good work that people like you and your organization are doing for the members of our county. Can't thank you enough, Angie, for what you're doing.
Thank you. I have a great team, too. They're awesome. So
I'm sure no one does it alone. I'm wondering if you could think back to maybe a piece of business advice that you have received that you would like to share, pay it forward with our audience today.
Sure. I don't know if it's really business advice, but it has played well for me in business. Like I said, I was a science-based, math-based student, public policy, kind of a policy wonk, came into this kind of business thing. I've been running businesses for like the better part of the last 10 years, and didn't really have that training. But my dad wrote me a letter when I graduated from college. And my dad was a school teacher who also transitioned into the business environment, and left teaching and went to work for some big companies, and, you know, became a C-suite executive at some IBM, Bethlehem Steel, Mack Trucks, big companies. And he wrote in that letter, I don't remember anything he wrote, except that he wrote, like, always be a problem solver and never be a problem bringer.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, that has always really rung true with me, because in my effort to kind of always look for the solution to a problem, I've learned a lot of business skills. And so I always try in everything that I've done professionally, personally, to always be someone that comes, not to point out the problem, but to say, hey, how can we get from here to here and do it better? Right. And so a lot of that mentality has fed my interest in kind of coming into these organizations that need to pivot or need a change in order to survive and thrive. And so it's so refreshing too when I have young professionals, because I have so many on my staff, that come and say, hey, what if we tried this, or what if we did this? And I love to see that, because it always makes us better and makes us better as a business. And like I think I said to you when we talked before, 501c3 is a tax status. We're the only business level organizations that calls ourselves by our tax status. So to teach these young professionals how to solve problems in a business environment, where we're very often under-resourced, or are always trying to figure out how to make things work because we don't have the financial resources that a lot of other businesses do. It's served me well, and I see a lot of success in the staff that does that as well.
Yes, I think that advice from your father is prescient, because it as a leader, it's so nice to have people to come to you who identified a thing and have an idea on how maybe to fix it, versus just throw the problem on your desk and walk away and let you worry about it.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm sure there's a challenge or two that you're facing, Angie, as the president and CEO of Beyond Blindness. I'm wondering, could you pick one and maybe just highlight it for us and tell us what you and the organization are doing?
Sure.
Okay.
I thought a lot about this question, and had you asked me maybe 18 months ago, it probably would have been something you've probably heard a lot, which was recruitment, retention, board engagement, all those things. Yes, they were problems. I feel like we've kind of really hit a kind of sweet spot in our recruiting and our retention, and the group of people that we have working here, and our bond that we've kind of worked on culturally. Now we've grown exponentially. When I came here, we were serving about 260 plus maybe kids. We hit over 1,500 kids and family members last year. So to have that kind of growth, clearly there's an astronomical need for the services that we provide, or we wouldn't have seen that growth. My biggest challenge, though, is always funding. I mean, that's, and especially now, watching this election cycle, the economic uncertainty that we're facing based on who's going to be the president of the United States. I mean, where the cuts will be, you don't know, what's going to get cut, what their priorities are going to be. And it does really affect nonprofits, and especially since COVID, we've become kind of this extension of government agencies. We're helping government agencies implement the things that they're federally mandated to do, and a lot through legislation. Like, we are helping them implement what is required under IDEA, which is all the rights that children with disabilities have for their education. And so we're an extension really of that. And where that funding comes from, how we're funding, the state budget cuts, those all really affect our business, because we're partially supported by philanthropists, about 50-50, and partially supported by that government type funding and different revenue streams from public agencies. And, don't know what our donor side's going to look like. Donors and foundations, we've been starting to really try to have these conversations with our private funders on the philanthropy side about the increase in our operational expenses because of inflation. Those donations and gifts haven't kept pace from funders with inflation. The federal government doesn't, and the state government doesn't reimburse for indirect services. So our drive time, our mileage. So it's really that, like, making sure I'm paying attention to what's going on a very election economic scale, even though it's going to boil down to, it's going to affect our donors. It's also going to affect our funding from the state and government. So I would say finding that right balance between how many kids and families can we serve and match that funding with that ability and who we want to serve, right? So, I mean, and especially you find it's more problematic in this election cycle because I really feel like it's a total toss up as to what's going to happen, and we're all feeling that kind of in everything that's going on.
Interesting. Yes. That's the challenge of nonprofits. The demand is greater than the capacity, and to build the capacity, you need to look outside your people you serve for the funding to help the people that you serve. Right.
And of course, as nonprofit people, we want to serve everybody.
Right.
You don't want to say no, but as a leader and as a business person, you do have to say no. And right. So where do those no's have to come, and when are they going to have to come? And striking that balance, it's really difficult.
So I know next month in October, you have an event coming up, a golf tournament. And if you could tell us a little bit about that, maybe who should go, what would happen for those that go, just tell me about it.
Sure. Thank you so much for that opportunity. Yes, it'll be on October 14th. It's being held at Coto de Caza Country Club. When I look at our golf tournament and think about who should go and what it's about, our golf tournament is a great opportunity for people to learn about Beyond Blindness and connect with other companies that are very passionate about our cause and have really committed to our cause. It's a low cost point for companies to enter, and but the depth of our long-term corporate supporters, like when I look back now over the last 5 years and what corporate supporters have come in and are continuing to support us, they all had that entry point kind of at the golf tournament, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a very business-oriented, business-focused event. Large optometry and ophthalmology and banking presence as far as the sponsors. So it's a great way to network with other, like-minded people that work for big companies here in Orange County that are supporters of our organization. And then it's also a great way for us personally at Beyond Blindness to develop those relationships with those companies. But it's very low key. We don't do a lot of selling on the course. We offer one opportunity at the beginning for you to buy a player card, and then you can participate on everything on the course. And we do have the typical dinner but we really highlight a family at that dinner. It's not an auction or an ask or anything. It's just about learning about who we are and learning about our families that we serve.
And if someone wanted to get a foursome, what's it cost?
It's $2,200, I think, for the VIP sponsorship, which is includes a foursome and some other things. So
okay, interesting. Well, it's coming up soon, ladies and gentlemen, and Coto's a great course, and October's a beautiful time of the year to be out on the golf course in Southern California.
Yes.
So
thanks
let's
for
that. Always. Matter of fact, I'll be asking you shortly how people can learn more about it, but let's hold that thought for just a second. The vision for the future. What do you see for the future of your organization?
Collaborative partnerships. I think the only way that independent nonprofits are going to survive is really leveraging our ability to do good work together, right? What do we all bring to the table? How do we partner? I I've got quite a few in the pipeline right now of big partners that I'm talking to about different ways that we can work together and serve this population, but also help them meet their mission as well. I've worked the last couple years in partnering with a lot of other nonprofits here locally and building kind of a disability collective where we're talking about ideas and ways to work together and go together on grant proposals and really make a collective impact. I think funders also are really looking for those innovative ideas where the community is coming together and leveraging their dollars more through collective partnerships. So I really believe in the power of collaborative partnerships and have been actively pursuing a couple that I can't announce here, but hope to announce within the next year, this fiscal year. So, but I do think that is the wave of the future, and also what is going to really shore up Beyond Blindness for the long term.
I love that. Again, I'm all about community, and if you can build collaborative partnerships that it's a win-win-win, that's a good idea you got there, Angie. I support it.
Thank you.
So someone's going to want to learn more about Beyond Blindness, and maybe they're going to get a foursome together and sponsor the golf outing. How do they learn more about your organization and connect with you?
Sure. Well, our website is very simple. It's www.beyondblindness.org. So just type our name in, and with the .org at our website, there is a golf page there under our events that you can find. There's also all of our program information and how to make referrals. If you know someone that has a child or has there's a referral button and anybody can refer. It doesn't have to be from a doctor or whatever. It's an open referral. Someone will reach out to them. So there's lots of information about that as well. There's also a donate page. I'd be remiss if I didn't say there's a donation page on there as well that people can access and make a donation if they're so inclined. On LinkedIn, Beyond Blindness can be found at Beyond-Blindness-OC. I personally can be found at Angie, and then my middle name is my maiden name. It's Cianelli, Cianelli, Rowe. And our Facebook is Beyond Blindness OC, and our Instagram is Beyond Blindness. So pretty much had a good name choice when we did the name change, and all those names were available. And so if you just do a quick search on Beyond Blindness in any platform, you can pretty quickly find us.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, at the open, I said we were going to have a great show because Angie was our guest, and Angie, you delivered. I really have enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rick.
And thank you to the audience. Angie's episode will join our catalog of over 1,500 episodes. And you've been a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. If you're an Orange County nonprofit leader or an entrepreneur and you'd like to share your story with our audience, it's easy. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. And in the connection request, just let me know that you have an interest in being a guest. And between Haley, our producer, and myself, we can talk to you about what's involved in getting you ready to be on the show. There's no obligation. It's just an opportunity to share your story with our audience. And until the next time we all have a chance to be together, I hope all of your decisions will move your organization in a positive direction.